do with this stuff. So we'd like to start with some brief introductions, and then we'll let Becky take it away, and if you need some assistance from the audience, just ask.
I have volunteers, right?
We'll be taking questions during the presentation. We will try to leave time for questions at the end if people want to do that, but if you have a question, raise your hand, shout out. Apparently we only have one working microphone right now, although the tech crew here is so good that may not be true by the time you have a question. So, Becky, who are you and what do you do?
Hey folks, my name is Nick. I am from Transcendental Winter Productions, and I am not a professional seamstress or costume maker or anything like that, but from learning from my mom and looking at Minna's blogs and Ruth's information, all that kind of stuff throughout the years, I've just figured out how to do things. And throughout the years, I've learned how to take things like corsets, cheap corsets from Amazon, and hack them into making them look like they work nicely and things like that. And then all the way down to like figuring out how to build a heavy-duty corset throughout, from watching things and chatting with folks.
My name's Ruth Winter. Don't usually have to use one of these things. Sweet. I run the Rocky Horror Anal Retentive Costume List. You may have heard of it. It's now available as both .com, which is fancy and flashy and in WordPress, and there's also the classic.info version, circa 1997, hand-coded HTML. I do mostly my own costumes, but I am not a sewist, and I'm one of those people who becomes anxious when she looks at patterns, as opposed to one of those people who becomes anxious when they don't have a pattern, which is most of what my presentation is going to be about. I've been doing Rocky Horror since 1987. Please don't do the math. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Becky Milanio. I was a Columbia and the director of Indecent Exposure in Berkeley, California in the 1900s. I am currently the director of the Michigan Rocky Horror Preservation Society in Wayne, Michigan, and we love theme nights. So, we do. We absolutely love theme nights, and I guess I'm going first today. So, and also I encourage you to ask questions as we go along. And do we have the slideshow? Okay.
Oh.
Yes.
Do you have the laptop with the stuff on it?
What stuff on it?
We just want a clicker.
A clicker?
Yep, you have the slide?
No, your laptop.
Slides?
I have my laptop? Yeah, well, oh, God.
Okay, I'm just going to start real quickly. A lot about doing theme nights, I do believe, takes communication, collaboration, character recognizability. I want the audience, when they come into the show, to know who your character is. So Nick is actually, do you guys would know who this is if you were at a show?
I would.
Yeah, this is our Crim costume from our Veterans Day show. So our thought was, when we used to have a 4th of July show, we moved it to November to better suit our calendar schedule. And it was great. We had red, white, and blue costumes. It was wonderful. And then the 2016 presidential election happened, and nobody wanted to wear red, white, and blue that Saturday. So we thought, what are we going to do? So the following year, we reimagined Rocky Horror, and I took my actors into a different time period. And it's not about bringing George Washington into Rocky Horror. It's about taking the Rocky Horror actors into a different time period. And this was the criminologist outfit. We did the entire show. So it was it was a lot of fun. And a lot of reasons why we make these costumes is because my actors are encouraged to make their own Rocky Horror costumes, and we do drafts of a lot of things. And we're going to talk about the drafts of the Columbia Bustier in a little bit. So
We're good.
you got them? Hope can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
So we're going to start with our Valentine's Day show. I fully believe in collaboration. Brittany's my assistant director, and she wanted a Trixie costume, so we collaborated on this beautiful cage dress for her. The hearts are removable, so we like things to be multifunctional. You can take them off with Velcro and exchange them out for a different theme night, maybe a holiday theme night or something like that. Nick's going to talk about corsets, but these were purchased off of Amazon. And I just handed my actors sequins and glue and said, go at it. And this is what came up. These are brand new for this year. And our Frank even designed her own. And that's the Frank corset from Valentine's Day. Again, Amazon purchased, you just embellish it and it works. So Valentine's Day is one of our smaller shows. We're from Magenta, and Dalton without pants. You do this well, Nick. You do this well. So St. Pat's came along, and again, last year we added Amazon corsets with rhinestones. We did a lot of sequining. We always have a Columbia bustier. I like the bow tie to always be present for Columbia. I like the R to always be present for Rocky, so this way everybody knows who you are. Oh yeah, that's Valentine's Day. We also make mitten clips. So these are all come in a variety of different colors. We use them for all of our shows, all of our theme nights. So they connect to the corset and they connect to the fishnets. So they can be red, silver, and blue, purple, green, and gold, depending on the holiday that you have. I'll just let them do this. Yeah. And that's a Rocky skirt on the right for St. Pat's. We just start, Pride Night was our most recent theme night we created, and all of our actors wanted to be represented by their flags. So yeah, we have about 12 different flags represented in Michigan. So we created some costuming for them. We actually had 2 riffraffs that night, so we had 2 different riffraffs happening. On the bottom left-hand corner, we also make bow ties for theme nights for our theater staff. Nice. So they feel like they're included in our theme nights. Thank you so much. This is another collaboration. Bridget came over. She said, I want a magenta apron. And we just sat there with spare fabric in my basement and created this apron last year. Tiki Night is coming up this coming weekend. Again, well, you all right? Okay. Again, the bow tie is represented by the color in the bustier. I think that's upside down. There you go. This is Rachel's last draft before she made her actual Columbia bustier. Again, I encourage you guys, if you're going to go a bustier route, please, please, please make a draft first. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. All of my actors have I always talk to them. I make the base pieces, so you'll see me do a magenta apron, a cap, an Eddie scarf, a vest, a Dr. Scott tie, a creme ascot, but they go in and they embellish it. And then what they want to wear. Again, theater staff bow ties, Amazon purchase shirts. Just add the red R to it. I love that I'm getting a fashion show at the same time. Anybody have any questions? Oh, we have mics. This is awesome. Yes. Oh, my Transylvanians. My Transylvanians, I have actors that actually want to be Transylvanians for theme nights because they love their costumes. Mardi Gras, for sure. Easter, which you'll see in a little bit. Sock Hop, our Sock Hop Transylvanians, always very popular. Yeah, absolutely yes.
It's a beautiful 1950s theater, so the sock hop really, I'm going to sit a little further away from you. The sock hop thing really ties in very nicely, and the staff also goes all out with their beautiful custom bow ties.
How long in advance do you start planning for theme night?
We're going to talk about timing. That's a very good question. We actually are going to talk about timing in just a minute. This is actually Tiki Night. Everyone talks about Rick having a banana on his head, so we made that happen. And that's Frank's fruit basket for a floor show.
Talk about the construction for a minute. I believe you used hair bands as easy ready-made.
We use the headbands, and we also have like the stiff foam board that it's created with all these pieces. These are just fruit like dipped in glitter, spray glitter. The magenta aprons, I always collaborate with my magentas, like what kind of fabric do you want to use with it. A lot of what comes out of our theme nights is because of the actors themselves. They come over, they help me out. We have what we call stitch and bitches, generally about once a week. And they come over and sometimes we bitch more than we stitch. That's the God's honest truth. But we actually have a lot of fun. And they get to help me collaborate and create these things and imagine them. Now this was a full collaboration for my cast. These are the holiday Transylvanians. I always say the devil's in the details. So they know more about what goes into these costumes. The little things, the snowflake Transylvanian has snowflake buttons. The light bulb Transylvania has light bulb buttons. It's something the audience will never notice, but that we like to just go ahead and Dude, add a little extra to our theme nights, just for them. We have a lot. This is another thing with the Transylvanians, like, I want to be the Christmas tree. It's my outfit, I'm wearing it. And this is the other thing we do this is the only photo I really have. I need to get a better shot of this. All of our floor show characters are leg lamps. So we have a leg lamp kick line in their floor show colors. And this is one of those things where I let my actors do what they do best, and that's be very creative. I need a Valentine's Day set of mouse ears. I need St. Pat's mouse ears. Here's some flowers, make me a Betty bouquet. And this is what happens. This is what they come up with. Mardi Gras and what used to be 4th of July is now Veterans Day. Tiki and then Saka. And that's Easter, Pride, and our holiday bouquets. One of my Transylvanians took over making these, and now she wants to go into floral design. So we have 4, those are our smaller theme nights. We have 4 really large theme nights in Michigan. We do what we call a loadout because we want to keep track of all of our costumes. So before they leave the house and head to the theater, the costumes are inventoried. The actors have to return them and sign them in at the end of the night. This way you don't lose track of your costumes. I highly recommend doing that if you're going to go with a large theme night. This is our Easter Trixie. It was inspired by the first shot that you saw of the Valentine's Day cage dress. Hannah said, I want to see that covered in flowers. I'm like, let's make that happen. And we collaborated on this one. We spent a lot of time working on this together. And that's how that turned out. Then Nick's going to talk about corsets in a little bit. But this is the corset pattern from Minna's website, columbiascloset.com. It's an amazing website. She's got patterns and great ideas. And this is the Easter frank corset from that site. And then we have an Amazon purchase corset just covered in rhinestones. It's backwards, we flipped it for Lauren. Janet dress is the exact same pattern we used for Valentine's Day, we just flipped it for her a little bit. And also, the key, when you're gonna make a Janet dress, make sure the riffraffs know how to undress you. It's also very important because that actually has buttons in the back, but I use fake buttons to put Velcro in, so Riff could just like rip it and just quickly unzip her. So it's very important to make your costumes accessible to what you're doing on the stage. And in our Easter show, everybody has bunny tails.
If I could put in a word just for a minute. For quick fastenings, I use Velcro too. If you've ever used Velcro and you're, say, I don't know, a magenta or somebody who wears gloves, you know that it will catch on your chiffon and it will catch on your gloves. The burlesque community uses snap tape, which you can buy in the back with the trim at Joann's, or you can buy it from China. It'll take a little longer to arrive. It's literally what it sounds like. It's 2 pieces of twill tape with the male half of the snaps on one half, the female half on the other half, and it will not snag your gloves.
We were talking about Transylvanians earlier. Easter Transylvanians, they have a blast with these costumes. They all have gloves, glasses, vests, bow ties, bunny tails, the whole bit. And then I think, matching socks. And then they shed the coats for creation, and they all have these great spring colors going on. So it's a lot of fun. It's one of our largest shows.
Do you buy materials for that?
No, I had to go source it all from Joann's. So I do source my fabrics. I spend a lot of time sourcing fabrics. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But I was very lucky that they had a spring line of colors that year.
How do you get the socks? Or do you make the socks?
They actually did it themselves. The Transylvanians just went out and bought socks.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the floor show characters also had ears and tails.
Are those bad boots?
No, we actually made tails. They're actually super simple to make. I want to know how to make a tail. Again, we have a lot of female Rockies, so they do a lot of collaboration. She wanted to work an Easter egg and stuff like that. And then there are the floor show characters and their ears. We use the colors for floor show a lot when we do a theme night. And those ears were created to match Frank's shoes. Sock Hop. Now, Sock Hop is an all-day affair in Michigan because we make cars in Detroit. And we have a classic car cruise that goes right in front of our theater on Michigan Avenue. And we're out there all day with Kissing Booth. The Transylvanians and the actors will wear some of the costumes. And we sit out front and we hop duty, we time work throughout the day. We're there from noon until 3 a.m. in the morning. So it's a very long day. This was a full cast collaboration. I had people in my house from like 9 a.m. in the morning until 3 a.m. in the morning. sewing. So my Eddie's going, what am I supposed to do? How does this elastic go into the skirt? How does this work? So if you don't know how to sew, I tell my actors, if you give me an hour of your time, you'll save me two. If you're gluing the sequin, if you're gluing a rhinestone, that's daytime sock hop. Yes, sock hop Transylvanians. We have 24 shows a year, and we have 9 solid theme nights, 2 that rotate out, and then we also do Cast in the Hat, and we're doing this a mashup this year with JCCP.
So when you have the repetitive, so spring or Easter or whatever it might be, are you going to end up using the same costumes a year later?
Yes.
You might have to add some because you have a different person.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. We have multiple St. Pat's bustiers and multiple bustiers of Veterans Day. So, absolutely. If we need to remake a costume, we will. But most of the actors, some of the costumes are interchangeable.
Red, Valentine's Day, Christmas, Veterans Day. Oh, nope, it's Nick.
This is our theater staff and our sock hop bow ties. So they enjoy that. And this one is a big collaboration. Rachel needed this is exactly what you were talking about. Brittany had a sock hop costume. Rachel was performing Columbia, so we got together a couple weeks before the show, pulled out some fabrics out of my basement and just collaborated on that. Again, the bow tie is present, but it does snap off. So after sweet tea, we put a lightning bolt on there. So this is the show. This is a show that I was mentioning earlier, the costume that Nick was wearing. It was originally a 4th of July show. We moved it to Veterans Day. This fabric, which you'll see in a little bit, was the entire inspiration. I found this a couple years prior and said, I'm a Columbia, this should be a tails coat. And it should be a George Washington tails coat. And from that, we created this entire Veterans Day show. It's a tribute to our founding fathers. It's now called the Rocky Horror Hamilton Show. But the key with this show is, are the characters recognizable throughout? And that was very important to me. If you're going to take your characters into another time period, change their costumes, but make sure that they're still recognizable. This is, my cast calls this the Slytherin coat. I can't talk to you. Again, another Amazon purchase corset, just reimagined. And these are additions from last year, Transylvanian. All the Transylvanians had to come over, cut out patterns, end them out, and cut out the fabric. And that's Cosmo playing Prim for us for that show. You just took that off. And of course, we're practicing Aaron Burr, the story, so his tails goes a little bit different. Brad and Janet, again, we wanted to keep them. We kept the gingham, we kept the plaid. We reimagined spacesuits a little bit. And one of my actors collaborated on this, and they said to me, he cannot be Eddie. It's too formal of a time period. He must be Edward. So it actually does say Edward. And you'll notice the symbol on the back of go back for a second. The symbol on the back of the jacket matches the one on Frank's lab coat. That was done on purpose. The Masons, right? So this is the tails coat. I will say this much about this fabric. If any of you use mesh sequins, and a lot of people do, cut out an additional pattern piece in cotton and then trim it out. I'm saying stitch it all the way around so that this becomes your pattern piece. You get a lot more stability this way. Does that make sense? If you have questions on that, let me know. Yeah, and again, the bow tie is present in the hat. Okay, stop there for a second. So you asked about timing. How do we choose? Somebody asked about timing of theme nights, right? And how do we choose theme nights? A couple of things. One, our leadership group gets together after Halloween, because Halloween's a busy season for everybody. We get together after Halloween in November. And put it on there. Goes the other way, that's the back. So, there you go, thank you. There you go. So every year in November, our leadership group gets together, looks at the calendar for the following year, and we map out what our theme nights are going to be, because sometimes Valentine's Day doesn't make it because of where Mardi Gras actually sits in the calendar, right? And then we have had cast suggested theme nights where the cast like submits ideas and the cast will vote on them. That's how we got our sideshow theme night, which we'll put up next year. It's all about, you know, Magenta's a Bearded Lady and Prim's Lion Tamer, and so it's Transylvanians are clowns. That show goes up every other year. How else do we choose theme nights? Well, I'm at this, no, go back. This theme night right here, no, it's fine. This theme night is actually a new collaboration. It's my brand new theme night that I'm building for the cast of Barely Legal in San Jose. Hey, Lizzie. You are here. Sorry about that. I went to Nate in December and I said, hey, I want to build you guys a theme night. And Nate said, okay. So the cast had 2 months to submit different ideas. And I gave all the ideas to Nate. And Nate said to me, like, here you go, Nate. Pick your theme night. And his cast had fantastic ideas like glam rock and Victorian holiday and whatnot. So out of all the theme nights, Nick picked Versailles. So in Thanksgiving weekend, I'm building my largest show. There'll be about 130 costume pieces on the stage. And this is Janet's bronze slip. There's like 20 layers of fabric in this slip. And so this is Janet's Versailles theme night slip. This is the first time I'll actually be building costumes for the entire crew. So if you're on lights, props, audio, you will get a costume. You'll be in black. I do believe in because the crew needs to be in black. The costumes for the crew will be in black. But it's a huge undertaking. Barely Legal has been amazing to us. So it's my gift to them, and it's going to be a phenomenal theme night. So if you're in the Bay Area, go ahead. And this is probably one of my funnest shows, and that's Mardi Gras. Keep going. There you go. And this is, again, you talk to your actors. What color vest do you want? And which pattern do you want? And they're very, very good at this. Again, making sure that your characters stay recognizable throughout. And when I built this show, I said to myself, I'm not putting feathers on my stage. That didn't happen. So these are the floor show costumes. And again, I gave my actors glue, rhinestones, feathers, and if you can tell, those are golf visors. Just flipped upside down. Those are upside down golf visors. You see that? Do you guys see it? I was actually going to bring one of these with me, but packing it became a nightmare. So, and when you do add extra pieces, and Transylvanians, okay? Our Transylvanians are responsible for dressing our floor show characters. They help out with dressing. And because they had beads from their shoulders to the cuffs, and because there were like 3 or 4 added pieces to Mardi Gras, we actually have a dress rehearsal for this show every year. Because the headpieces are incredibly heavy, and as a Frank, you're doing Wild and Untamed Thing. As a Columbia, you're throwing a boa over a headdress. So take these things under consideration if you're going to build a theme night. Again, timing. We actually started in November for this theme night. It happened in February. With Barely Legal's Versailles night, we started talking in December. The show's going up in November. So, go back one slide. Thank you. Why do we build so many bustiers? Because if you're going to be a Columbia and you're going to invest money into Larry's fabric or the fabric sold by Satin Worshippers, thank you very much. If you're going to do this, please, please, please make a draft. So, can you pull this up for me? This is Rachel's very first draft. It uses the steel boning that Nick loves. And then this one, Ruth, if you don't mind, this one is Rachel's Tiki Night draft. And the difference in the two, when Rachel made them, is the length. Because I'm a Columbia with a long torso, and some patterns are meant to be, usually corset patterns are very short, so you have to lengthen them. And if you're going to invest the money in a Columbia bustier, make sure you do a draft first that you do indeed have the ability to lengthen it as you want.
Do you do your drafts just in muslin, or do you do them full secret?
And that's it. We do
This
them
is
like
a
that.
draft.
Yeah, that's actually a draft.
So when you're done, you have something pretty instead of just something in muslin.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the pattern that I use. There's a lot of patterns out there that look like this, so just pick out which one works for you. And we use the Columbia closet. We use Minna's suggestion of how to do this. After you actually create the bustier, just the front and back of it, it's put together. A garbage bag goes on my mannequin. Rachel sprays it with spray glue. And then the fabric, we use Larry's fabric for this. which by the way is on, Larry told me it's $40 a yard today.
It's on sale, $50 if you wait until next week.
So, and then that's what it looks like. You can see, actually again see the steel boning. Actually, this is the finished product. Keep going. And then we add the bias tape at the very end. And the interesting thing about this one is that the actual zipper, as Jamie said, put the zipper top down, because this is where you need most support. Let's just take on. Reverse it. Okay. And then, I'm also a Columbia, and I performed last year, and I knew I needed more support than this. So what I did is I put a strapless bra built into my bustier. So, it's actually a chain. If you want to know how to do this, there you go, just like that. If you want to know how to add a strapless bra into your bustier, let me know. This is actually a Jamie Froman idea. There's a tunnel of fabric here. There's a piece of bias tape here. It's actually floating inside of it. So that was, yeah, it gives you all the, I've never felt more supportive, yes.
That's like a really cool idea, but I'm just wondering, is that pretty much specific just for bustier and you kind of share it with the rest of the class, or?
If it fit one of my other Columbias, absolutely they could wear it.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely they could.
but it's like probably less likely to.
Most of my Columbias want their own bustier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a couple of boosters. I think the boosters and the like non-generic corsets kind of have to be fitted to because almost everybody is different shape. Yeah.
Yes, which is why we make, again, so many drafts. I also want to talk about tails coats real quickly. Then we can do all three of them together. Okay, so let's talk about tails coats because a lot of people do this. I've seen a lot of people use different sequin fabrics. I'm a big proponent because I'm old school of all the different ones. Now show the back first. These two tails coats, the ones that Nick and Ruth are holding, were built in the 1985-1986 timeframe. They've withheld their stand of time, and there's a couple of reasons why. So first of all, Nick's one Nick's holding has not been prepped. That's why you see that the sequins have actually frayed and come apart. That's the number one complaint about this fabric. Oh, the sequins come apart so easily. I get that. But if you actually do prep your fabric, what I do is I take Elmer's glue, and on the back of this fabric, you'll see these fancy little lines. Every single line gets Elmer's glue put on it. That's why this coat has lasted longer. This coat has never come out of circulation, even though IE retired in '95. Another cast in the Bay Area borrowed it for like 20 years, and it came back to Michigan. Now, the other difference in these coats, flip them on the inside. This is lined in cotton. This has lasted a substantial period of time. This is lined in satin. It's deteriorating greatly. The tails are always beautiful in satin, we know that. So what I did for my tails coat that I wore last year is I split the difference. So the jacket piece is cotton, the tails are satin. And why is that? Everybody who's been in a theater on a hot summer night, y'all sweat. Am I right? Yes. Cotton's a breathable fabric. Satin is not a breathable fabric. Satin closer to your body. It's also easier to clean. You're not going to sweat as much if you have a natural fiber closer to you. So I always, all my Veterans Day coats, everything's lined in cotton. All the coats I'm making for Versailles will be lined in cotton, but the tails will be fancier. So I highly recommend lining them in cotton. It will last you. This fabric, this coat right here that Ruth is holding, even though it's deteriorated on the inside, the outside was prepped, all the yardage was prepped with the Elmer's glue. It's withheld itself for 30 years. This is Larry's fabric. This is vintage. So I will actually, it's predates Larry's fabric. I will tell you that I bought this fabric for $55 a yard back in the 1980s. Larry's selling his for $50 a yard today. So it's definitely, this is Larry's fabric. And this is also prepped with Elmer's glue before I sewed it. Buy extra needles. By the way, I actually broke a lot of these. These sequins are different, right? Because they're metal, is that in the old days?
So when you're sewing them, what needle do you use?
I use a heavier duty needle. I also have a heavy duty machine, and not the industrial ones, the heavy duty one, and it actually does help. I didn't break a single needle in making this. I couldn't even tell you, but it's the standard heavy duty needle in the machine.
Like a 16 or
Probably a 16 or an 18, yeah. Any other questions about theme nights, tails, coats, or bustiers before we go forward with Ruth, I think is next?
Nick.
Nick is next.
Thank you.
Okay,
mine is not as exciting. We're specifically talking about one costume piece, and this is for dinner scene corset. So back during the 40th anniversary, I was casting a dinner scene. I'm like, okay, I gotta create a new one for the convention because I wanted to look good. Anyway, so I started researching and reading on Minna's website all the different articles and finding images of clear images and things like that, and trying to find. So here's the articles. There's several articles on Minna's site about how to build them, what patterns to use, things like that. Even purchasing, for example, her overlay, which she still sells and makes, and these overlays are fantastic because eventually, once this top wears out, I'll just separate this because I simply used some kind of bonding glue, I can't remember what spray brand it was, and attached it, and then all the little buttons and stuff. Like, she even sells the fancy screen accurate ones, which since the 40th they still haven't sewn on, but that's okay. If you don't feel like buying these guys, you can always buy this type of ribbon, which they sell at like Joann's and stuff, and it works pretty well. Just cut into little pieces and sew it on. So the whole process of building this was getting a pattern from Minna's site or like the same pattern that Becky uses, and basically kind of sizing it to yourself to figure out which size fits for you. And for the top piece right here, I've gone through several versions of this, and this is the latest one that I'm probably going to reorder to change that one, where it's only halfway because you don't need to actually go any further. Inside of my corset, I actually have it kind of just attached at certain points. Now, this corset, I use steel boning, and the material that I used was a velvet that I found on eBay. And it was a much redder color. Let's see, is there an image of it? So here it is when I first purchased it, this big, beautiful, flowy skirt, and I ended up dyeing it with purple dye. This is a Ralph Lauren. Here's me cutting my material. So here's a piece of the material. It was very flimsy, and I put a backing on it, an iron-on backing, and then after dye, you can kind of see the dye kind of coming through here. Eventually, I ended up reattaching this to some of Erica's magenta dress material that I made, a cotton backing that you see in here, that just to have it stand the time. So this is how many years old? When was it, 40th? How many years ago? 4 years ago. So this is from 4 years of wearing it, and it's very thick, and it feels very nice and stuff. And all the channels, I used bias tape to sew the pattern on, and then used, of course, steel boning inside of the corsets. And steel boning is pretty cheap. Anytime you buy any kind of, like, for example, Amazon corset, go in and change that boning. So this right here is one of those cheap Amazon buys, and I simply changed some of the boning, added some frill, moved the grommets from the back, the eyelet, the eye holes, whatever. I disconnected the back, I added them in the front to make it look like a pretty decent, screen accurate enough corset for me. And this was a cheap, like $15 corset that, with a little bit of time makes it last a long time. So anytime you get one of these things, don't go buying this plastic junk, because plastic junk bends and all kinds of stuff, and then you have to replace it. So always buy this stuff here. It's fantastic. It's very easy to actually use. There's a lot of tools out there, such as this is Becky's crimper for putting on the little ends on the corset, on the boning. So there's this little guy, little cap, put it on there, you size it, and then you use the little guy here, you put it in, and somehow or another you squeeze it, and then it makes it a permanent piece so it doesn't end up stabbing you. So anyway, this corset, let's just go through some images. So here's me sewing on the bias tape to make it channels a double layer so I could sandwich it in between the two, and just keep clicking through. I'm just gonna go through. So this is me making each of the different pieces, and while I was going through this, I kept on going back and forth, reading articles and things like that, and it took me about 2 weeks to create this, off and on, work, kids, stuff like that. And here's me running it through before to make sure that I made the channel wide enough. Here's me originally trying to use the plastic, I said forget it, working on which kind of zipper I was going to use, making sure I put in a zipper guard so nobody rips my skin up and when they're putting it on me between scenes. And then, of course, deciding which needles to use. End up going with the 16 over here, which is meant for denim and such. So again, I never took any kind of formal lessons. This is me just kind of watching a couple of YouTube videos, reading an article or two, looking at other pieces and kind of deconstructing them in my mind and how they would work. And when I first created this thing, I followed the pattern exactly, and it was way too wide on me. So then I realized, well, I need to make it thinner. So you can see here me working on adding the zipper cover and things like that, and going back and forth until I finally got it to work. And then eventually, once I sewed the panels together, I eventually put bias tape on them so they don't fray. Keep going. There's the front. And me putting in the steel boning. More boning. Keep going. Oh, and there's so one of the places where I had a lot of problems when I finally got the whole body put together was the eyelets. So I had a problem. I used to have one of those like little cheapo grommet punchers that this guy right here, that you can buy from any of the different fabric shops, and they're horrendous, they're horrible. Every time I'd use it, they would end up breaking on me, the little thing. As much care as I took to try to punch them correctly, they didn't work. Eventually I gave up and said, I make the fabric way too thick because, well, this thing is heavy, you can listen to it. I mean, if I threw this and hit you in the head, it would kind of hurt because there's a lot of steel in here. And so eventually I ended up buying a more expensive version of it from Amazon, but I actually didn't get this in time, so I took it to a shoe repair guy, and he punched all the grommets in form with heavy duty, and it worked out pretty well. But there are a lot of, if you are going to be making theme shows like Becky does here, and she's making 1 million corsets, I'd probably invest in one of those big heavy duty chuckum type of machines. Yeah.
Can you also talk about cutting the ribs?
Oh, so the ribs inside. So when I made this right here, again, I just followed the pattern. It wasn't like I knew the logistics of exactly how a course is supposed to work or anything. It was me following the pattern and looking at courses that I've had in the past and just knowing that, well, I want the shape to go like this. And I looked at images from the movie of how his looked. I mean, like my original one was black before I started seeing higher quality images of the thing actually being a paisley, material and stuff. So the channels here are just what I...
Did you search Sorry, I was asking whether or not you actually serged the open pieces in the underarms, because some Franks do that, some Franks don't. This also goes for Colombians who want to add the
holes.
Yes.
the holes in their pajamas.
And you'll notice how we're holding this. That's because he bought a mesh shirt. It's not chiffon, it's mesh. Chiffon runs. This is mesh. It doesn't run, and it's flexy.
So all the holes in the thing, I serged them, but I don't actually have a serging machine. I just simply use the back and forth, whatever that pattern is called, and well, it makes the holes nice and sturdy, and it won't run on me. And where's the other one? The other one has bigger holes in it.
There we go.
Here we go. There's this guy here, and in the 4 years it hasn't run. So as long as you keep going back and forth, you won't have the runs going across the thing. So again, those were when I was playing around with different accessories to put on it, because again, you can't really find the exact screen accurate type of embellishments that are on here. But also, when you get to the point, if you're going to make a screen accurate costume like this, besides ordering this overlay from Columbia's Closet, you might want to also ask her, can she create you a little scrap piece, because his buttons actually have the same pattern on the button piece right here. So I typically keep mine buttoned, but his in the movie is kind of unbuttoned. I keep it there just so it doesn't end up causing potential rips when I'm performing. Just keep going. I don't know what else I have here. This is me going through, and eventually I ended up using a bonding glue to put another piece of bias tape over the hem, because I still was worried about it fraying, and I probably used no fray underneath it, and eventually used my iron press and pressed it on so it was a nice clean seal, and in the multiple years of using it, it hasn't run. It's worked pretty well. Keep going. Oh, and this is me trying it on at home. This was my old top, so eventually I changed it. When you're making your grommet holes, if you're gonna try to use one of these little thingies, I have one of these little guys here that I specifically use for corsets that I end up heating under the fire so it would melt, because most of these, less expensive corsets are made of some kind of, burnable, meltable material. So I end up having one that's meant for poking the original hole, and then one to actually melt it so it doesn't fray once you put your grommet hole through there. And this is me just trying it on, and that's an image that I use for reference. More reference images, rips. So I didn't make my rips so rippy like his, because if I did that and I didn't actually sew the edges, it would completely fall apart eventually. And keep going. I use Cosmos Factory. I use Larry's old images. We also have the Mick Rock book. I use that a lot. And so this was the fusion adhesive that I used when I ironed the cotton material to the backing of the original material. right here just to thicken it and make it, not so flimsy. And keep going faster. Go. Any questions so far? So this is at the 40th. I sat right behind, Eric and I sat behind Patricia and Gia, one of our friends. And this is during the performance. I just thought, well, hey, this was the first time I wore it. Here's some images of it. And it was fun and exciting, and there it is, looking nice, and that's it. Yeah, so it came out good. I was very happy with it. And it probably cost me in total, the material, I actually won the skirt for like $30 on eBay. But the rest of the stuff, like this stuff, it probably ended up costing maybe $75 worth of materials. I don't even know, but it's lasted many years, and it's very heavy duty, and it can hurt somebody. Again, like I said, if you throw it at them. But you can easily find some of these less expensive Amazon purchases that are, I've seen some paisley-looking purpley ones online. You could get. You could, and if they're not the right color, just dye them. Dye costs $3.50 or $4.50 if you get on a 50% coupon. Dye it, and then get that sheer top, which was like $10 from Amazon, and do this. You don't even have to go purchasing a $20 overlay from Minna, but it really does make it look fantastic once you get it. So I would recommend those Franks that want to make this costume and maybe have not, because they're like, yeah, that's not that big of a long scene, but it's a beautiful costume piece, and it's nice if you can get a chance to do it. And this one you'll see me wear tomorrow. These are my replacement. Oh, it's tonight? Oh, shit. Okay. So these are my replacement Frank gloves. The material I bought from Minna, but I found something very similar to it at Joann's. And it's just a spandex material. I didn't go about the process of making what's it called? Gussets? Whatever, the extra little material in between. It's not necessary because, well, it stretches. And I put the extra detail of putting the buttons on here. You don't have to do that. No one's really going to pay that much attention unless you want to. Yeah, buttons.
Yes, there are buttons on it. You can see it in a couple of the photos.
Yeah. So I think that's basically it. I mean, again, you don't have to go through this process of building a corset, and you don't even have to have a very expensive sewing machine if you were going to try to do this. You can also just buy these guys and use your hand and needle and do it, and just make sure that you use things like the proper glues to glue the material on. One of my favorite things that I've recently started using is...
Nick, we're at about 12:45, and they've just cut my screen.
Okay. I'm done. There you go.
Yeah. If somebody from the RKO Prop Army could tell me whether I can have 5 more minutes, I'll try to just fly through mine now that these folks have blown you away with all these gorgeous, pretty things. I've got I'm not a sewist, so what the hell do I do with this stuff? I like to call it hacking your costume. It's not a costume, it's a craft project. But right now I have no visuals, so if one of the RKO Prop Army could help me out.
Is something on the screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, because she wants the screen. All right, so preparation. I did this in PowerPoint because I'm an engineer. They don't have PowerPoint. I don't have PowerPoint. Tried to put it into OpenOffice, which refuses to open, so in the spirit of making sure that you're prepared, this is a PDF, so enjoy watching me try to go through this. So, go ahead. Basically what I'm going to talk about really fast, because we're mostly out of time, is it's fantastic if you know how to sew and you have an army of people and a sewing room and all of that fantastic stuff. One of the things I have noticed is that people who know how to sew get a little bit nervous when they get into unknown territory. My first experience with somebody who knows how to sew was a friend of my husband's and mine who helped him make his Frank cape from a pattern. She was amazing. And then we said, hey, we want to make these other things. And there was no pattern, and she froze. But we were fine because we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and we thought of it as just a craft project. So this is going to be about making it good enough, the same sort of research you would do if you were somebody like Becky and Nick who does know what the hell they're doing, and some of the things that you can modify because Google and Amazon and eBay and Alibaba. Next slide, please. Also, if you don't make it perfect, don't worry. Having a not-so-perfect costume right now is so much better than having the perfect platonic ideal of a costume that never gets made. So, what do? We do our research. There are lots of amazing things out there. I won't mention where it is, but come talk to me afterwards and I will send it to you. Sean Hall has every 5 seconds of the movie screenshots from the DVD available on Google Drive. I use it a lot. So this is some of my early research. As you can see, I was working on an apron trying to figure out about what size it would be. And look at all the photos that you can. Look at those screenshots and think shape. If you're going to go get something at the thrift store or on eBay or whatever, it's much easier if you start with the shape and you don't have to change that. A lot of people look at something and say, it's pink, I will make a Janet dress out of it. Look at the shape. If it ain't pink, you can change that. When you're shopping, do remember to bring your references along. One of the things that Becky has been carrying around all weekend is this lovely ring of all the fabric that she's working with. So when we went shopping yesterday and she was wondering if the expensive fancy rhinestones would look good with her fabric, she had it with her. Every time I go to the thrift store looking for Brad shoes, I look at my phone. It's amazing. You got the internet in your pocket. It's really embarrassing when you buy a pair of shoes and you get home and you're like, oh, actually they don't look like that. So it's what your phone is for. I figured this out for the first time when I bought a wig from somebody. We were trimming it. She just pulled up her phone and said, okay, the wig shape should look like this. Next slide, please. So, this is courtesy of Minna, Columbia's Closet. Can you modify something? Again, look for the shape. Okay, it's pink. It's fitted on top. The skirt is a little bit looser. It's too long, but we have scissors. We can fix that. We can add a collar and cuffs. If you've got buttons, white buttons are probably good enough. If you can find the white flower buttons, good for you. The internet does make that a lot easier. And in this particular case, you'll notice it's sleeveless. If you're a serious screen accurate Janet, you're going to want sleeves. Speaking as somebody who doesn't sew, sleeves are one of the hardest parts of the costume to get right. And her sweater's off for what? 5 seconds? It works. Next slide. So, we talked about color. I do want to mention a couple of things. If we had been having this conversation 6 years ago, I would have told you if you want to change the color, you've got to work with natural fabrics. This happily is no longer true. It is easiest if you start with something that is a lighter color than the color that you want to make it. If, however, you are dealing with synthetics, such as, oh, I don't know, any of Janet's costuming, there are actually dyes out now that will work on synthetics. Rit Dye-More is what most people use. They don't seem to carry it at Joann's. Sometimes they have it at Hobby Lobby. I know, they're evil, but they're trim department. Or you can certainly buy it online. Michael's. I would much rather go to Michael's than Hobby Lobby. Thank you very much. The other thing that you can do that people don't always think about is fabric paint. I belong to a burlesque costuming group. I take burlesque classes. I'm not a burlesque dancer, but you want to talk about costume challenges, these folks know their stuff. And one of the things they recommended is jacquard fabric paint. I had a Columbia who was broke, but had a red corset. We bought 2 bottles of jacquard fabric paint. We painted it black, and much to my surprise, it looked really good, and it worked. So, you can also do things like spray paint if you're a Dr. Scott and you can't find the tie with the stripes in the correct direction, because I don't know why UK ties go the other direction, but they do. You can use fabric paint, or I've known some award-winning Dr. Scotts back when we had costume contests who just found some ribbon that was the right color and said, okay, boom, boom, stripes. Glued or sewed? I don't know. Either one would work. This, what can I find that is the right shape, is particularly helpful when you're dealing with one of those things that will put a sewist who needs patterns into brain freeze. One of those what I call what the fuck items, like, oh, a spacesuit. And the thing about what the fuck items is that they've changed over the years. The dinner corset chiffon sleeve thing used to be a what the fuck item. Now you look for clubwear on Amazon, 2 minutes and done. Next slide. Got at least, oh, okay, I'm doing better than I thought. I have at least 5 minutes. Okay. So you're modifying things, and you're like, okay, I'm probably going to need some tools. There are some traditional tools that you're probably thinking of. You are going to be cutting things. You want 2 different kinds of scissors. If you know anybody who sews, ask them how they'd feel if you use their fabric scissors on paper. Paper is made of wood. You cut wood, it dulls things. So if you're going to be sewing at all, I do recommend that you get a good pair of fabric scissors, and if you are not a sewist, you may not know that places like Joann's and Michael's always have a sale going on. If you ever walk into a fabric or craft store and you don't have a coupon, go find one on your phone. There's always at least one coupon for 40% off a regular item, and sometimes 20% off your entire purchase if it's a particular holiday. They like to try to get you into the store around Memorial Day, stuff like that. Watch for coupons. You can sign up. Teacher discounts, very good. I don't qualify for those. Yeah, my husband gets the paper coupons. I never remember to take them, and finally I was like, fine, and I downloaded their app.
And Ruth, also being from Chicago, has an amazing source of fabric outlets. San Francisco as well, and even here in Providence, there's some great fabric stores. So even if you're on vacation in another town, go check out fabric stores and fabric outlets for fantastic prices. And like she said, save the coupons.
Okay, so there are also some traditional things. Yeah, you're probably going to want a pin cushion and maybe some pins to put in it and a needle and maybe some thread. And if you don't know what the hell you're doing, there are lots of good tutorials on YouTube. Or there's that friend in your cast who knows how to sew. Buy him lunch. Ask him to show you how to thread a needle. It's good. Some of the other non-traditional things most everybody here probably already knows about because we're dealing with the hardcores. But if you haven't ever fixed the color on something with a Sharpie or nail polish or even spray paint, you probably should rethink how you're approaching things. Again, the burlesque community has been very helpful there. There is apparently a special kind of paint which is designed for fabric. It's called Meltonian. I use it to touch up my space gloves because try finding silver leather gloves. I don't know why I didn't buy 3 pairs when the last time I found some of them. All right, and also I'd like to put in a good word for hardware stores. My favorite cylinders for the space belts is 1/4-inch dowel molding. You can get it half dowel. You don't have to cut it. Well, you have to cut it. You buy the 20-foot length that they make you buy. You cut little pieces. You file them, and you glue them on your belt. Okay, so you paint them gold. Life is good. Moving on. So, modifying things. Google Foo, Amazon. I've had a lot of discussions with folks who used to be Rocky Horror fans back in the day, and we're just all blown away by the fact that if you're looking for platform shoes, you just go, oh, okay, show me platform shoes, and they're everywhere. You don't have to worry about whether they're in fashion anymore. It's amazing. Also, some things have changed even in the last 5 years. If you're a magenta, you know that finding one of those feather dusters used to really suck, and you had to make a trip to Chinatown. They're on eBay now. You look for chicken feather duster. They're there. Make sure you look at the size. I do have one friend who bought one, and it came and it looked like a cat toy. But I checked eBay last week, and you can actually find the feather dusters that have that goddamn little spiraling red line around them that I had to put on my feather duster with paint. So yeah, look around. Things do evolve, as I mentioned. There are also things we can borrow from other communities. If you're trying to figure out how to color a wig, the cosplay community is a huge resource. And you can even take a note from the folks at Spirit Halloween who think that your Superman costume isn't complete without some crappy-looking boot spats. Here are my crappy-looking boot spats. And I would like to point out the materials used to make the pattern. There's a little math. I figured out how wide around it was on my boot and figured out how many points I could cut because I'm an engineer, so math. And you'll notice that the red thing there is actually the back of a pizza box because the pizza's wrapped in plastic. It's clean, it's a handy thickness and size, works for me. I'm also a big fan of cereal boxes. And the white there is, I think it was made out of an envelope. So Nick has much, much prettier boot spats than this. This is the old one that I loaned to riffs and folks like that who are guest performing with us if I like them enough. This one here is a pair of ankle boots, patent leather ankle boots from Amazon. I was crushed when Fredericks, back in the early 2000s, stopped making their beautiful ankle boots. They held up a lot better than the modern ones, but, well, we're no longer in the 2000s. So I took it to my shoemaker, said, here's my pattern. The shoemaker said, that's great, I need a second one. Scotch taped it to the boots, he cut them down for me. And here you can see that I have spray painted the inside of them with a Meltonian and with a goodly helping of painter's tape, because you don't want to spray paint the wrong side of them with a silver spray paint. Also newspaper, because Wally objects when I spray paint the lawn. Next slide. So when you gotta do things from scratch, oh, it shows, I'm so pleased. Hand props and small pieces, this works very well. If you go out to the vendors, you'll see that Domestic Stitchery is offering $2 lab masks. They are made of felt. I tried making some out of a stretch fabric material like a polyester. I have no idea what the hell Sue Blaine was using. Jamie Fromming says it's like some alien material from Area 51, I don't know. I thought about bringing them, and then I looked at all the stuff that Becky was bringing and went, yeah, I'm going to hand around a lab mask. No, we're not going to do that. So what we have here is we have what I'm currently using for my lab mask. It is made of bubblegum pink latex laminated onto a white base material. I went to the 40th anniversary, went to Spandex House, yes, it's a thing, and said, please sell me 1/8 of a yard of that. And so I have a lifetime supply of latex appropriate for making lab masks. If I were closer into the fetish community, I could probably just get plain latex that isn't backed with anything. So if you're hooked up with your local SM folks, be aware. Next to it is my version of the felt. If I'd been really smart, The pencil marks where I decided where I was going to cut the hole for my ears would be on the same side as all of my lipstick. Didn't quite do that right. And on the right there, you will see that there are two different patterns. You probably can't see with the pixelation, but the one here, there's an outline all the way around all of the holes. That is the pattern that I use when I'm working with fabric that has to be turned under. The one next to it is the one where I just lay it down on the latex and go zip, 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 zip. It's a half pattern because you fold the fabric in half and then you trace it and they match. And you are going to want to check with a newspaper. I look ridiculous, but every time I make one of these, I try it on because maybe it's tearing a little bit around my ear, which means it doesn't fit quite right. Or maybe I put it on a Columbia who's like, ooh, you have a lifetime supply of this stuff, I will come over. And it's too long on her because my face is longer than hers. I mean, you try it out on yourself and you modify. We used to have lab mask parties. We'd have a couple of people come over, we'd fiddle around with the newspaper patterns, everybody would leave with lab masks, everybody's happy. This next thing is what the pattern should look like for a space gauntlet. These are actually not that difficult to make, but it took me a while to figure it out. Actually, I think I was in college trying to avoid doing my physics homework, get a lot of good Rocky Horror stuff done when I'm avoiding something else. What you probably can't read here is the little bonus point. The bonus point is that gauntlet over there. I had to position very, very carefully so I couldn't show you where it was tearing around my wrist. And the reason for that is that's a right angle. You'll notice that the yellow there is not a right angle. The reason for this is nobody is going to look closely at your wrist and see that you didn't match exactly how Sue Blaine had it. But if you have a right angle, you have a stress point right there at the corner. Yeah, I mentioned engineer, right? Curve it. That way the stress is evenly distributed, you're much less likely to get tearing. Although I should note that I still do loan those gauntlets to riffraff who perform with us when I like them enough. Those of you who are old will perhaps recognize the fabric. It's fairly easy to get PVC or patent leather these days. It wasn't back in the day, so that's that nasty, crappy stuff from the back of the Joann's, back when you had to go to the upholstery department. It's kind of leather textured. But again, dark theater, view from audience, works pretty well. You can also get gold binding tape there, which would be much easier than what I did, which is I have a lifetime supply of LeMay and went, okay, there you go. Next slide. When you have to have a pattern, your friend has gone into brain freeze and there just is no pattern for a spacesuit wing out there, I would like to talk about newspaper. I would like to talk about Scotch tape. The awesome thing about newspaper, it's 1 o'clock so I'll have to wrap this up, is you can write on it. If you need to note that this is not actually where you want it, or put a hem here, or don't put a hem here, you can just write right on it, and if it doesn't look right, you just cut some of it off or tape some more of it on until it looks like what it's supposed to. You will notice that none of the newspaper there actually looks like it's one piece, and that's because it isn't. I finally said, fuck this, Jamie is right, and had somebody else build me a spacesuit, but one of these days I'm going to build one, and I'm going to use that, and it'll work. This is particularly important for you ladies or other folks of indeterminate gender who have a chest. You ain't flat, and you're going to have to accommodate that. I'd also like to point out the Scotch tape, which is how I kept it on my body while I was looking in the mirror going, does this look like that picture, Patricia Quinn? No, not yet. Okay, tape. The pattern here is made out of an old sheet with pieces glued to it and taped to it and stapled to it where necessary, with notes about here's where you need the seam allowance and here's where you don't. There it is in action. So, next slide. I think basically this is the end. Oh, well, we'll have to fly over this. Math, it's a thing. There's a trick question. How many buttons are there on Magenta's dress? I've been asked this by somebody who really knows how to sew. It's a trick question. How many buttons are there in Magenta's dress? Patricia Quinn's has, if I recall correctly, 16. But if you are 6'2" and you're wearing a magenta dress, you ain't gonna have 16. If you're 4'9", you're gonna have some number that's lower than 16. Make it work for you. So all that I've got here with the ratios is building an apron. I am much wider than Patricia Quinn. I think I have been since I was maybe 14. But she's got eyes, she's got a nose, I've got eyes, I've got a nose. So instead of trying to figure out how wide her hips are, measured the eye, measured it on me, measured it on her, and next slide, please. Put together a spreadsheet because I'm an engineer. So, eye to eye, waist to waist. Okay, it's supposed to look like this, and then you cut out some pieces of paper because it's cheap, and you see how it looks on you, and you adjust. Next slide, please. So, I wanted to finish this up with supplies I can't live without. You've probably figured out what they are. I did want to put in a good word for glue, Becky likes Elmer's. I like Elmer's. There are lots of different glues that work for lots of different things. Google will tell you which is which. Super glue is a lot less useful than you think because you probably want something that flexes. And if you're one of the people out there using E6000 because it's fucking amazing and will glue anything to anything because it's an industrial adhesive, I'd like to tell you about E6000 Fabrifuse because first of all, it doesn't do that weird stringy thing. And second of all, it doesn't require that you wear a respirator if you're working with it for hours. And it comes with a lovely precision tip and it is actually designed for fabric. So that said, we've used up all our time, so if there are any questions, you want to talk to one of us afterwards, that's cool, but I believe it's time for the Rocky Horror Show Forum, so thank you for your attention.